Good afternoon, everyone. We are sitting today as council, and we are in the presence of our staff, including our municipal clerk's department. I would like to call this meeting to order at 1 p.m. Our next item of business is our land acknowledgement statement. The Township of Hamilton is situated within the traditional territory of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nation. Our work on these lands respectfully acknowledges their resilience and their long-lasting contribution to the area now known as the Township of Hamilton. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, that shall be recorded. Motion to confirm the agenda, which has been circulated. It is recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. That the agenda for the regular council meeting held on February 21st, 2023 be approved. Do I have a mover, please? John? Second by Larry. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 5 on our agenda. Declarations of pecuniary interest in general nature there. Are there any declarations today? Seeing none, that shall be recorded. I guess I could turn to our staff, our deputy clerk. Is there anyone on YouTube or anywhere with any questions today? Thank you. And I don't believe I see any in the audience. So. And again, I see no presentations or delegations today. And also item 8, planning bylaws, I see none on our agenda. Adoption of our previous council and committee of the whole meetings. Council, January 17th, 23 minutes. Special council budget meeting, 2nd of February, 2023. And council, February 17th, special council, February 17th minutes. It is recommended the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. That the minutes of the January 17th, 23, February 2nd, 23, and February 17th, 23, council minutes, council meetings be adopted. The mover, please. Moved by Larry, seconder by Bruce. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Committee of the Whole, February 14th, 2023. It is recommended that the Council of the Corporation of Township of Hamilton enacts as follows. That the minutes of the February 14th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting be received for information. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Mark, second by John. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 12 on our agenda, Public Works and Infrastructure. The annual and summary report for Camborne and Creighton Heights drinking water system. Anita, are you going to take over this part of the meeting for us?
Please.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jim. I brought forward the water annual and summary report today, February 21st, 2023, as is required by Ontario Regulation 170, hereafter known as OREG 170. OREG 170 requires that an annual and summary report be provided to the public to describe the state of our drinking water systems. As we have for the past few years, we've combined the annual report and the summary report in one, which is referred to as the Camborne and Creighton Heights Water Systems Annual Summary Report. The Hamilton Township Distribution System Annual Summary Report operated by Lucy is not included in this report, and it will be presented in the next council meeting. I will summarize a few key points in this presentation related to our systems. Both our township operated water treatment plants ran within the limits of the permits to take water, which govern our water taking. The Creighton Heights permit to take water was renewed in 2022 and is current until 2032. Camborne's permit to take water is current until 2027. In this year's report, you will notice that raw flows have been split apart into individual well flows at each of the treatment plants in order to better understand the demands of the raw wells. Also new this year is a reference to Section 11 or Schedule 22 of the regulation as it applies to each of the headings in the report. This assists the reader in understanding why we report what we report. I've also attached OREG 170 in this report for your reference. Our annual ministry water treatment inspection for Camborne for 2022 was completed in December of 2022. The score for the inspection was 100%, and the Camborne inspection report and scoring have been placed on the township website. As of the publishing of this report for this council meeting, the Creighton Heights annual ministry inspection had not been announced. However, just last Wednesday, the ministry inspectors visited Creighton Heights last week. They will be visiting a second day in order to look at trendings for compliance parameters. Once their report and scoring is available, we will place the documents on the township website. Both of our township operated water plants have met and exceeded the requirements for water quality as prescribed in the schedules 10, 11, 13, 23, and 24 of OREG 170. These quality parameters test for microbiological, inorganics, and organics. A summary of these results is included in the summary report. Adverse water quality incidents and corrective actions were as follows. For Camborne Water Treatment Plant, there were no incidences. In Creighton Heights, there was one reportable incident due to high chloramine level in related to electrical anomalies, which we're still trying to figure out. And one occurred while we were switching from chloramination to free chlorination for the annual denitrification of the distribution. We also had a reportable related to sodium. Sodium was tested in 2022 for both systems, and in Creighton Heights, it was found to be just slightly above 20 milligrams per liter. Now, to put this in context, in Ontario, there's an aesthetic objective of 200 milligrams per liter related to sodium. However, any result over 20 milligrams per liter must be reported to the public health unit. Health Canada has determined that for healthy people, the daily tolerable upper intake level for sodium is 2,300 milligrams per day, which includes sources found in food and in water. As sodium in drinking water provides only a portion of an individual's sodium intake in their diet, sodium levels in drinking water should be taken into consideration for people on a sodium restricted diet. We reported the result to the health unit, and we sent out the health unit's information pamphlet to all water customers in Creighton Heights. So this concludes my presentation of the annual and summary report. At this point, I'm recommending that council by resolution acknowledge receipt of this report. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Anita. We do have a prepared motion, which will give us the opportunity to ask questions or comments. It is recommended the council, the Corporation of Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report WTR 2023-002, being the 2022 annual summary report for Camborne and Creighton Heights drinking water systems for information. And that council acknowledges receipt of the report by recorded vote. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by John, seconded by Bruce. Before we call the vote, which we'll turn to our clerk's department to do, any questions or comments further? John, please.
Just a comment. I'd just like to thank you very much for the very open and transparent report, even though I didn't understand some of the technology in there, but I tried to figure it out. Thank you.
John, I'll quickly smile and say, you're not alone in some of that stuff. Any other questions or comments? Okay, could I turn to our clerk, please, for a recorded vote?
Thank you, Mayor Jibb. At this time, I'll ask every member of council, as I call your name, please indicate yay or nay. Councillor Butter. Councillor Davidson. Councillor Levshin. Deputy Mayor Williams. Thank you. And Mayor Jibb.
Yay,
Carried unanimous.
thank you.
Thank you.
And once again, Anita, thank you.
Mayor Jibb, if I can just quickly through to council, pass on my thanks to Anita and the water staff. Obviously, the results of a 100% inspection report is very positive, and it's to the efforts of both Anita and the staff of the township undertaking their job so seriously and efficiently throughout the course of the year to achieve that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur. And I believe it would be appropriate to just go back to that time frame at Christmas and before, when we were having power outages. I don't know whether everyone knows it or not, but we actually had staff stay over, sleep over. And I use the word sleep with quotation marks around it because I'm sure it really wasn't sleep time, but stayed over in the water plants for quite a lengthy period of time. And because, as we all know, that that department is also, or that staff within that department is also roads department. And then they continued on out into the township to plow snow after they were relieved. So Anita, thank you, and thank you to everybody. Moving on to item 13, which is rec and facilities. There are no items identified. And we shall then bounce to corporate services. 14.1. I'll actually go ahead and read the motion to get it on the floor, Sandra, and I'm sure you'll be speaking to it after that. It is recommended the Council of Corporation Township of Hamilton enacts as follows. The council receives report PNG 01-2023 consent and development agreement, severance agreement for information. And that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the consent and development agreement for Barry Papaleo and return to the applicants for registration on title in fulfillment of conditions and consents. So could we have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Mark, seconded by Larry. Sandra, if you would please help us hear any report on the report or questions we may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This, as it has been acknowledged, this is in fulfillment of condition of consent to sever for new lot creation in Bewdley. It is one of our standard conditions when consent is in a settlement area of the moraine, and there is a significant woodlots in the area. There's nothing particularly extraordinary about this particular agreement, so I'm just recommending that it be adopted and endorsed by council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? John, please.
When you, sorry, through you, Mayor Jibb, when you talk about vegetation, what are we talking about in the report? We're talking a woodlot, or are we talking grasses, marshes?
Through the mayor, in the town of, in the village of Bewdley, it would be more significant woodlands than marshland grasses or anything like that.
Thank you.
Anything further, John? Anyone else? Questions or comments? We've had the motion. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.2 on our agenda, being an expense agreement, plan of subdivision application processing. It is recommended that the Council of the Corporation of Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report PNG 02/2023 and that a bylaw authorizing the execution of the subdivision application expense agreement be brought forward for approval. I have a mover, please. Bruce, seconder, John. Sandra, comments? Report?
I'm happy to report to council that we have received an application for a 25-unit residential subdivision in the village of Baltimore, directly east of Archibald Court and what will be coming off of Community Center Road in the near future. This particular agreement before you is an expense agreement only. By endorsing this, you are allowing me to work on the application. You are not endorsing the application itself yet. That will come forward at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Any questions? Any further comments? Thank you. Motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14.3 on our agenda. Year-end report for 2022 from the building department. Please, Tim.
Good afternoon, Mayor Jib and members of council. A lot of this report has actually been discussed already in the narrative. That was done at the time of budget. So really, I'm here just to answer any questions you may have with respect to the report that's been presented.
Larry?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. You've got quite a sizable reserve there. And you looked there and you indicated in your report that you're excited to take a look at plans that you may have for the future to improve the services there. What kind of services improvements would you be looking at?
Sure. So the first component that we're looking at is just a bit of a transition from building and bylaw. I know it was mentioned in the budget that an additional 10% of two staff's wages would be paid out through building. Some more time is being put into the building department. And then like cloud permit in 2022, if there's any technological improvements we can make, or even through GIS rather than cloud permit, we want to explore any option we have to enhance the service that we provide to the township. On top of that, it has been discussed between the CBOs in Northumberland County to potentially do another review of fees and charges, where if we can find savings for applicants, we'd be willing to explore that as well.
Thank you. And just one more question. I just wanted also to say that well done. When you think of the number of applications we've had over the years, we're talking about a bunker crop of building going on in the township. And the size of the value is extraordinary. So, and the job that you and Mike do is just outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark?
I think it'll be pretty similar. I don't have them in front of me. But yeah, there hasn't really been a slowdown and there is a lot of inquiries regarding the additional residential units. I know that was just passed last year, but it's an opportunity that's been set up for a lot of different families, both outside of the Marine and in the Marine with additional residential units as part of the principal building. So yeah, I would see it being pretty consistent, if not a little bit higher than 2022. I thought the same thing when the material prices went up as high as they did, but it hasn't changed people's perspective on wanting to build. I think the value of their property is increasing at a rate where they're still willing to take that chance. Welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I see, Tim, that the pre-winter month of November has the highest level of inspections, as history has always showed it to be. Everybody goes into panic mode at the last minute. Anyway, thank you, Tim. Motion that council receives report BLDJ being building 2023-01, being the 2022 building department year-end report for information only. Mover, please. Moved by Mark, seconded by John. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaw enforcement, site plan control under 14.4 on our agenda. It is recommended to council, the Corporation Township of Hamilton enacts as follows: that council receives report BLW 2023-01, bylaw enforcement site plan control, and that the amendments related to section 41 of the Planning Act with respect to site plan control areas be approved, and further that bylaw 2023-11 be brought forward for approval to amend site plan control bylaw 2019-65. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to get this on the floor? Moved by John, seconded by Larry. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Larry?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Tim, this relates all to Bill 23, doesn't it? Yes. There's a lot of, it says exclusion from the site plan control. I was just wondering, what clarification can we have regarding the architectural aesthetics and stuff like that? I remember that we have some controls over those factors, don't we, in the architectural control? The aesthetic values and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Bill 23 had changed or redefined development and what we had control over with respect to our site plan control bylaw. Exterior design, it's not being looked at the same way that it was in the past. So that's one of the items that we're actually taking out of our site plan control bylaw. So we're not making any decisions or having any review for the architectural look of the building. That also includes some landscaping as well. We don't provide additional restrictions through the proposed amendments for our site plan control bylaw.
So this also includes the heritage areas, right? So architecturally, the outside of the buildings, if they're in an area that would have some influence within the heritage aesthetics, we have no control over that anymore. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. That's defined elsewhere.
Okay.
It still needs to meet the requirements as set out, even Building Code Act. That'd be part of applicable law. This refers to things outside of items like the Heritage Act.
Okay.
I am not aware of those changes yet. There is something today we're just dealing with the site plan control bylaw. If there's any amendments for the Heritage Act or how that's being described, that would be part of a different report.
Okay, thank you.
Just for clarity, would it be factual that we have designated structures, but we don't necessarily have any designated areas of heritage?
In Township of Hamilton, that's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Tim? Okay, I believe we have it moved in second. I'll turn to our clerk's department for making sure we got that. Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, I'll ask for the vote, please. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Item 14.5 on our agenda. Being a refreshment vehicle license renewal, known as Codeman Fries and Things, and I'm sure we're all aware of its location in Plainville. It is recommended the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report CD 2023-01, refreshment vehicle license renewal, Codeman Fries and Things for information, and that council, the request from Dave York to continue to operate a refreshment vehicle on municipal lands known as the Plainville Tennis Courts for the period coinciding with the term of council 2023 to 2026. That council authorized the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement with Dave York, Codeman Fries, to set out the term of the agreement and requirements of garbage removal, installation of a porta potty at the applicant's expense, and payment of a yearly land lease fee of $4,040 for the term of the agreement. To get this on the table, could I have a mover, please? Moved by Bruce, seconded by Mark. Questions, comments? John, please.
Through you, Mayor Jim, I'd like to ask Nesrit a question, if I could, if she could just refresh my memory and just advise where this money, where it actually goes into, what department it goes back to and what reserve it goes into.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this will go into bylaws revenue. And in terms of reserve, no, it doesn't go into a reserve account, it goes into a revenue account.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I have one, and I must apologize. I read this 3 times, and each time I read it, I must have been getting more tired and I confused myself. And it's in relationship to the 6.9% increase. Is that for the term of the 23 to 26 on an increase on an annual basis? Or is that the total increase for the total term of 23 to 26?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the way it's being proposed is that it is a 6.9% increase from the previous year. However, it's been applied consistently over the term. So it's as proposed, $4,040 for each year of the agreement to run with the term of council.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. (14.6) on our agenda, post-election accessibility report. To get it on the floor, it is recommended the Council of Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. Council receives report CD 2023-03, post-election accessibility report for information. Have a mover, please. Moved by Larry, second by John. Any questions or comments from council? Larry, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Daphne, did we have any complaints at all with the election process with regard to accessibility?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we didn't receive any specific complaints related to accessibility. We worked really hard to ensure that we had a barrier-free election, and any kind of issues that arose, we were able to help facilitate the voting process, and I think we did that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. 14.7 on our agenda. HR report 2023-02, electronic monitoring of employees policy amendment. Melissa, please.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As noted in the report, the electronic monitoring of employees policy was presented to council in December 2022. The policy was approved. However, it was with direction to include an appropriate complaint mechanism in the policy and to review the updated policy with labor management. So we went through that process and provided some proposed wording to the Labor Management Committee, which they were in agreement with, which is the proposed wording in the report, which is employees that have questions or concerns related to the application of this policy, the use of electronic monitoring, and the validity of the data collected during the course of their duties may submit their questions or concerns in writing directly to Human Resources for review and response. We trust that satisfies council's comments and concern during the December 20th.
Any questions or comments? Nothing further for Melissa? Thank you. We have it moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion? Did I bounce away from that? My apologies. Could we have a mover, please? Thank you. Things will unfold later that you'll understand more. Been moved by Mark Lotion, Councillor Lotion. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Davis. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Carried. Item 15 being emergency services and item 16 being communications. I see none, so we shall move on to bylaws under section 17 of the agenda. Bylaw 2023-08 to appoint Patricia McCourt to the Township of Hamilton Police Service Board. It is recommended that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The bylaw 2023-08 being a bylaw to appoint Patricia McCourt to the Township of Hamilton Police Services Board be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 21st day of February 2023. I have a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Lotion, seconded by Bruce. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. 17.2 on our agenda. Bylaws 2023-09 to appoint members to the advisory committees for the term of 2023 to 2026. It is recommended that the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton enacts as follows. That bylaw number 2023-09 being a bylaw to appoint members to advisory committees be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 21st day of February 2023. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by John, seconded by Bruce. Any questions or comments? John.
Just a comment through you, Mayor Jeb. I'd just like to thank staff for their due diligence in making sure that all of the vacancies were filled, which is a good thing. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the other council members not speaking at this moment, we all echo what John has just said. Thank you, John. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. 17.3 on our agenda. Bylaw 2023-11, bylaw to amend 2019-65 site plan control. It's recommended that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton enacts as follows. That bylaw number 2023-11 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-65 site plan control be given a first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 21st day of February 2023. Mover, please. Moved by John, second by Mark. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. 17.4 being bylaw 2023-12 consent agreement Papaleo. It is recommended the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. That bylaw number 2023-12 to authorize execution and a consent development agreement with Barry Papaleo for Beach Street and Waverly Street, Bewdley, be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 21st day of February 2023. I have a mover, please. Moved by Larry, seconded by John. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. 17.5, bylaw 2023-13, expense agreements between Brother Property Development, pardon me. It is recommended the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton enacts as follows: that bylaw 2023-13 to authorize execution of an expense agreement for sub 01-23 with Brother Property Development Limited be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 21st day of February 2023. Moved by John, seconded by Mark. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. I see item 18 and 19 on our agenda being notice of motions, and I don't believe we have any. 19 being media questions on agenda items open only. I don't believe we have any. So we shall move to closed session. And one of my first items in closed is to have a 2-minute recess so I could get a drink of water for myself. So moving to closed session. Motion to move to a closed session to discuss matters permitted under section 239 2B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, labor relations, or employee negotiations, and advice that is subject to a solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. It is recommended the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows at the regular council. I shouldn't be there, should I? It is recommended the Council of the Corporation Township of Hamilton acts as follows. At the regular council meeting held on February 17th, 2023. February 21st, 2023, move into closed session at 1:37 p.m. in accordance with sections 239, 2B, D, and F of the Municipal Act for consideration of human resource matters. Moved by Bruce, seconded by John. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.